Greetings and salutations, amateur historians, bored teenagers, and everything in between. My name is Mado. As of 3 seconds ago, I have decided that July is Cold War month in the lead up to the Cold War Explained Part 2, the biggest video I've ever made. Today we're kicking it off with 4 times the United States and USSR nearly started a nuclear war. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications so you don't miss out when I upload a new video every Saturday. Alright, let's kick off Cold War month in explosive fashion. During the 20th century, Germany's capital city, Berlin, repeatedly won the award for city most likely to be obliterated as fast as my hopes of being good at Valorant. It arguably came the closest in 1961. After the US, UK, and USSR summoned the power of freedom, badassery, and the winter respectively to defeat Germany, the second coolest big three, right behind my Valorant trio, met in Potsdam, Germany. The Allies split Germany and Berlin between the Allies in the West and the Soviets in the East. Throughout the latter half of the 1950s, Nikita Khrushchev repeatedly called for the Western Allies to relinquish control of West Berlin. In response, President Eisenhower said, "Kiss my red, white, and blue ass." At the same time, East and West Berliners could still move freely around the city. This was to change. Overnight, on August 13th to 14th, 1961, the East German military suddenly and rapidly closed off any connections between East and West Berlin. Railroads were pulled up, roads were blockaded, and the Berlin Wall was erected. The Soviet army moved closer to the city, prepared to quell any dissent. Later that same year, American diplomats and East German police started playing games at the border. And it must have been Monopoly, because on October 27th, Soviet and American tanks rolled up to Checkpoint Charlie. The tanks stared each other down from just 300 feet, or 91 meters, away. The news spread quickly, and the world prepared for nuclear war. The stare down went on for over 24 hours, until JFK and other top military officials realized that getting blown up isn't fun, and opened up a communications channel with the Soviets. Negotiations ensued and the tanks disengaged. Computer glitches suck. Sometimes your 8K renderer Patrick from SpongeBob doesn't save. Sometimes you don't get notified of my videos. And sometimes you think you deleted your search history until the feds pay you a friendly visit. In 1979, there was a computer glitch arguably worse than that. In said year, computers at the Pentagon, Strategic Air Command, the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, which, by the way, is a really cool place that I might do a video on, and the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD HQ, blared a dire warning. The Soviets were launching a first strike. The US scrambled missile crews, nuclear bomber pilots were ordered to their planes, and interceptor planes took to the skies. Even the presidential Doomsday plane took off, although President Carter wasn't on it. In spite of this, many officers were skeptical of the alert, as the US and USSR were good pals at the time. They gamed together, they hung out on the weekends, and they ran a counterfeit money scheme out of the back of a barber shop. You know, stuff friends do. It was later discovered through the inspection of NORAD satellite data that it was a false alarm and that a technician ran a simulation of a nuclear attack. Or at least that's what he told his boss. Better than admitting you were trying to watch anime on a government-issued supercomputer. The early 1980s were arguably more dangerous than the 1960s when it came to the threat of nuclear war. No, not because Mario was corrupting the young children of America with his clearly communist sentiments. Of course not. Luigi is clearly the communist puppet. NATO and the Reagan admin were flexing their muscles at the Soviets, and in response, the KGB enacted Operation Ryan, an acronym for a group of Russian words that translate to nuclear missile attack. A bit on the nose. Luigi has a big nose! That L doesn't stand for a stereotypical Italian name, it stands for Lenin. The operation's purpose was to find evidence of a potential US nuclear strike. The tension came to a head in November of 1983. NATO conducted the Able Archer exercise to simulate a Soviet invasion of Western Europe, and it culminated with exactly what the Soviets had been fearing: a nuclear attack. It appeared that the Americans and NATO were unaware that they were adding to the Soviets' fears over the prior months, despite the war games becoming increasingly indistinguishable from actual war. Yes, officer, he did pull out a baseball bat during our Nerf gunfight. Also contributing to the danger was that Soviet intelligence was still embarrassed by its failure to see Operation Barbarossa coming during World War II, making it more likely that they jumped the gun. That's almost as embarrassing as not realizing that Yoshi is clearly a KGB spy. The final close call is another piece of undeniable proof that the end of the Cold War doesn't mean World War III is any less inevitable. No, Mr. Mailman, I think you've got the wrong house. I think that draft letter is for the dude across the street. In December 1994, Norwegian scientists teamed up with the United States to launch a scientific rocket. Last I checked, nuclear fission is scientific. As was standard protocol, Norway's foreign ministry was meant to notify neighboring nations before the launch scheduled on January 25th, 1995. They did warn Russia, but Russian radar technicians weren't notified. So what they saw was a missile which flew very similar to a nuke that could have turned Moscow into a Nuketown reenactment within minutes. Russian higher-ups were quickly notified, and President Boris Yeltsin quickly had the nuclear briefcase in his hands, making this the only time in the nuclear age that any world leader has opened and used such a device. Nuclear submarines stood by, fully combat ready. Yeltsin and other top Russian officials had a friendly discussion about Jar Jar Binks' political orientation, and decided that there was no such attack. Radar later corroborated this assumption. Nonetheless, this was the last major close call of the nuclear age. So far anyway. Oh boy. It's crazy to think about how many times in recent history that the fate of the world has balanced on the edge of a knife over what would typically be an honest mistake. These are not the only incidents, nor will they be the last. So, sleep well tonight. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications so you don't miss my new video next Saturday. I've been Mado, and I'll see you next week.